Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a combination that I'm really excited to see what kind of performance we can get out of it because it should look very nice. We know these shells are some good performers, so this combination should work out great. So as for the shells we've got out here today, I brought out some of these, the Salt Creek cold turkey shells, but these ones are their 20 gauge, 3 inch, 1 and 5/8 ounce payload of TSS 9s, moving about 1100 feet per second. And we did test these once before a while back on the channel with some pretty solid results from what I remember. And I know Salt Creek makes some good shells, so they should continue to be perfectly good performers through today's combination. And for the setup we're going to be running them through, I brought out my Stevens 301 20 gauge. It has a 26-inch barrel on it, and for a choke, we've got the Carlson's Longbeard XR 568 constriction turkey choke. This has been a very reliably consistent performer across the board. It's a good constriction for a lot of variety of shells, and it has performed well with a variety of stuff as well, so it should continue that trend with these shells today. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. The turkey target is at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shell. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see what the Salt Creek 1 and 5/8 ounce 9s can do through the 301 and Longbeard 568 choke. Should look pretty good, but let's take our shot and see what kind of a pattern we get. Alright, so that shell gave us 1154 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1100, so we were just a little bit over that, but we're still well within the realm of reason here. We're definitely not pushing them too fast or anything like that, so nothing too strange for a velocity. But what kind of a pattern did they give us down there at 40? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard target, and the results are rather interesting. To my surprise, these Salt Creek shells weren't really a fan of that Longbeard 568 choke, which is rather surprising. That choke's been a very consistent, reliable performer, and same with all of Salt Creek's TSS shells. They generally do well through about everything you put them through. Now, if we look closely here and just look at our core, which might be just a touch off to the right, maybe, but if we look at that middle 10 to 12 inches or so right there in the middle of your screen, it's definitely a pretty nice and even core. We might have one little void right at the tip of his beak, but nothing major at all. It's not the tightest core we've seen out of a Salt Creek TSS shell, that's for sure, but it's a very even spread of them through there. A very huntable pattern. But the second we back out and look at the whole picture, we have a ton of flyers all over the edges of the paper here, especially down here at the very bottom. I mean, that's just a ton of messy stuff down there. So some very interesting results here. If we just had this core area to work with, that wouldn't be bad at all. That would work fantastic for a 40-yard huntable pattern, but I'm definitely not a fan of all those flyers and stuff around the edges, without a doubt. So I don't know here. It was rather surprising. I expected a little bit more even of a pattern out of it. We definitely had a good start, but something just didn't really jive together, which is a great example of why you should always test your shells that you want to hunt with out of the shotgun and choke combo that you plan to use them in as well, because you need to know what your setup is actually going to do, because some combos work way better than others, even though you think they would be much better or much worse than they actually are. So a little bit of a mixed bag here today. I really like the core area. It's nice and even, uniform, very usable. I wouldn't hesitate to hunt with that pattern whatsoever if I just had what was on the screen right there. But as far as the edges go, you're going to be hitting any other bird that's close to them and getting pellets down there in your meat and stuff like that as well. So I don't know, maybe these might prefer a little more constriction, a little less constriction, maybe just a different choke or non-ported choke or something like that. I've got a handful more of these shells, and we're obviously going to run them through some other chokes, so we'll see what they like and don't like. Either way, this was a pretty surprising result. It's far from the worst 20 gauge pattern we've seen, but as far as a Salt Creek TSS shell goes, something here just didn't really jive together too well. But if it's what you had to use, then sure, it would be 40-yard capable with that kind of a core. So definitely a little bit of an oddball result here for this test. And here's the wad from that shell. Very typical stuff for a Salt Creek 20 gauge turkey shell. I believe these are the low bore contact wads from, I think, Ballistic Products is what it's called. Somebody that's more knowledgeable in reloading can confirm or deny that. But we know these are some very good wads that generally are not picky at all with what choke or constriction you run. And this one looks very much normal. There's nothing stuck down in there. There's no major damage. Doesn't look like anything weird went on. So I don't know on this one. something just didn't quite jive together as much as I would have thought it would. So we know we've got a good shell and we know we had a good choke, but we're just going to have to try these through some other chokes and see what they do, because I know we can absolutely get better results from them. But for the wad, looks perfectly normal. I wouldn't expect to see anything different here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance there? If we just look at that central 10 to 12 inches right around that bird's head there, it's a great pattern. It's not a baseball type core, but you really don't have a ton of voids or anything like that in there. It's a nice, even, uniform spread and a very huntable pattern. But as soon as you get outside of that, we had little flares of flyers and strings and everything all around the edges, which is not exactly what you want. So it was a little bit surprising. I thought this combo would have worked out a little bit better than it did. We know it's a good shotgun. We know it's a good choke, and we know it's a good shell. But again, that's why you test your setups with different shells and chokes to see what works and what doesn't. Because although that is still a very usable turkey huntable pattern at 40 yards, it's definitely not ideally what I would want to see. So now we're just going to run these shells through some other chokes and see if they might prefer a different choke or a little more or a little less constriction or something like that. Because I know we can absolutely get better out of those shells without a doubt. So I guess leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised like me? Have you tested any of Salt Creek's 20 gauge cold turkey TSS shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen, or what chokes have worked well for you with them? And what other chokes would you like to see me run those through? I've got a few other ones in mind, but let me know what you guys want to see. At the end of the day, a little bit of an oddball pattern there. Not exactly what I expected to see. And that kind of stuff just happens sometimes when you test a bunch of different combinations. So definitely a little surprising of a result, that's for sure. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.